Welcome to What's the Score, a series solely dedicated to the support of Central Florida's small business and entrepreneurs. Donated as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications. Now, here's Christopher Hart and Rich Jaeckle.
Welcome, everyone, to What's the Score? Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries Radio Show, and I'm here today once again with Rich Jaeckle of Score Orlando. Hey, Rich, how you doing today?
Hey, how are you?
All right.
It's 4th of July weekend, you know, and here we got Mike McBath over here grilling hot dogs in the corner, and I've got...
I'm sorry it's steak, Rich. I'm an entrepreneur.
I want my hot dog medium rare, thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
We've also got our fireworks tent set up in the next corner over here, so we're really having fun 4th of July weekend.
That's right, and there's nothing better to talk about on 4th of July weekend than entrepreneurialism, because that really is what made the United States unique in the world and as powerful as it is today as an economic entity.
That's correct.
And today, folks, we're here to talk about Score Orlando in particular, and we're here to help you make your business as successful as possible. This is the only show of its kind in Central Florida and is being brought to you by and on AM 660 The Answer. Okay, and this is, as I said, a show about and for businesses. It's about what makes them succeed and oftentimes what makes them fail, because there's lessons to be learned in both of those things. And more importantly, how you can avoid the pitfalls and take advantage of what Score has to offer you that you probably don't even know exists. And, of course, that's where Rich Jaeckle comes in, and Mike McBath today. Mike, thanks again for being with us
It's
here.
always a pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and Mike, you and I were at the Score Biz Fest here just a few weeks ago in Orlando. Now, later on in the show, you're going to give us a little bit more about your background, but why would a man who's a retired NFL player, who's now the president of the Retired Players Union, the National Retired Players
Union,
union
boss, buddy.
There you go. Why would you? Thanks for shortening it up for me. Why would you be at a Score meeting, which is to mentor small businesses?
Yeah, I'm going to reflect back to. Probably 5-6 months ago, I'm always in contact, and I'm talking to the executive director of the Player Association, and he kept commenting to me on Score. And like I guessed, like most Americans, you know, I've always been a big fan of entrepreneurship. I think this is any capitalistic society. It's the only way to survive is develop your entrepreneurs and do everything you can to make it a successful trip. Obviously, there's going to be risk associated with it. But this fella kept telling me about it, and so, I hear this, I hear that. Well, all of a sudden, Rich, wherever there's a party, he's there. But Rich,
So he shows up early,
that's right.
too.
As I'm grabbing my vodka, I see Rich through the glass,
Okay. Yeah, right.
But I did see his Score sign. So I went up and introduced myself, and I said, Rich, I've heard some good things about this. Give me a little bit of background. Well, certainly what he had to say was pretty much in line with what I thought. And it's, again, even though I'm retired, I'm still an investor and I'm still a person, if I see the right target, I may go. But we started talking and everything. And the more I grasped the total package of Score and all the different ways that they can help, entrepreneurs, I was totally impressed. And then because of the fact that I have a son who's going to graduate from graduate school soon, and he's going to be entering the world, whether as an entrepreneur or part of a grown business, I don't know. But I called him and I said, Taylor, you need to come to this business fest because of the different subject matters they were covering. Then I called a few of my former NFL player friends, and the thing with these NFL players, I always, I kid around. It's like they're really boys in men's bodies, what I mean? And the reality of it is,
kind of like
many of
radio
them,
here,
they need guidance.
Yeah.
And, just reflecting on my knowledge of all these players, I started calling different fellas that I thought, if anybody could help them, it would be the exposure to Score, because Score not only guides you along in so many facets, meaning financial, regulation, the many, many areas associated with business, but they sit with you, and guess what? They don't bury you in fees. no fees.
That's the best part about it, Rich.
Free.
Yeah, I mean,
Free.
now, sometimes free is not good. Hello.
Right.
We know where that's coming
get what
from,
you
the
pay for
government,
type
right?
thing, right.
But with this SCORE program, I would be the first one out there screaming, if you have a young company or if you're thinking of starting a company, go to their meetings because they cover so many facets that'll be, really a major part of the direction you'll be going in.
Rich, now you have the great center right over there at Fashion Square Mall. We did a show last week, but there's probably a lot of people listening didn't hear it. Tell us about your center and how people can find out more about SCORE.
Right. We're at the National Entrepreneur Center, which is, again, Fashion Square Mall. It's houses about 13 community service providers, of which SCORE is one. And you can go in there and you can talk with Hispanic Business Initiative Fund or Hispanic Chamber or African American Chamber of Commerce. There's just all kinds of service providers, community service providers available for you.
And that's walk-in, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
That's correct.
Now, if somebody wants to call or find out more about on the Internet, you would go to orlando.score.org.
That's correct.
And the phone number is 407-420-4844. That's 420-4844.
That's right. And I'd like to thank Mike for all the fine comments, and particularly because he's an ex-Buffalo Bill, of which I am.
Oh,
and
Go Bills.
Yes, go Bills. So I'll be flying up there tomorrow to have a little celebration.
Well, I know Mike and I talked both before and after the Biz Fest, and he highly encouraged me to go to it, and I'm glad that I did. And I was astonished to see you too were there, but Mike, and you were over there taking notes. And just give just a real quick synopsis of what actually went on at the Biz Fest that day.
Well, we had what we call speed counseling, and that is where you go in and you can sign up for the speed counseling session, which is about 20 minutes only, but you can get an idea as to whether you need a full counseling session or series of counseling. These are all experienced business executives that you're dealing with, so the free service does not denote free expertise. It means that we're all experienced, and most of us are retired. But the Biz Fest, you can come in and get an idea of what your problem is, and then schedule an appointment to meet a counselor. And the counselor, this is not a one-shot deal here. This is an ongoing type thing to help you with your emerging growth.
And once again, the purpose of the counselor is that they will put you with the right mentor for
That's
the
correct.
type of business that you're in, the type of project that you're running, whether it be marketing or whatever, trying to get financing.
Yeah.
So that's basically what would happen if I walked in at the Entrepreneurial Center and then went in and said, look, I need help. So someone would sit down with me and basically help me do an evaluation.
That's right. And you may be, we may recommend that if you're just starting your business from scratch, you got to do your homework, folks. You got to really get in there and look at business a little bit. And so therefore, we would probably recommend a couple seminars to take before you see a counselor, so you get your head kind of screwed on straight. And then come in and see a counselor, because now you know what you're talking about a little bit.
And how often do you run these seminars?
Oh, there's about 30 seminars a month, and they run every month.
Okay, and once again, folks, if you'd like to find out more about this on your own, go to orlando.score.org or give them a call over at the Entrepreneurial Center at Fashion Square at 407-420-4844, or just walk in over there Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, of course, except Friday. This week it'll be closed for 4th of July.
Right.
But that would have been this past week. But normally they're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And it's very easy. And as Mike mentioned, the cost?
Free.
Now, how can SCORE do that?
We are supplemented by the government to a certain extent, And most of our funding from the Orlando chapter comes from seminars and from sponsors. That's where we get our funding from.
Okay. And if someone would want to be a mentor, can they still go to the Entrepreneurial Center and seek out that?
Yes, absolutely. We have an entire recruiting department consisting of one person, and he will go out and interview and see what depth of experience you have. You have to be experienced executive and have to have some level of knowledge of entrepreneurism. So that would all be evaluated, and then you become a volunteer.
Now, Mike, go ahead.
I was, just what he was talking about here, just coincidentally the other day, I was playing golf and I was talking to this lady, and she's the head of Central Florida Golf Magazine.
Yeah.
And you know where she got her start?
Terry?
With SCORE. And she only had the kindest words for the organization. And she also said that, like any growth business, there's always periods where you got to take a look. Should I go this direction or that direction? And I know she was contemplating coming back and just discussing certain change in directions and dimensions to her company.
With SCORE.
With SCORE.
And this is a young woman who has done something that's pretty rare in this day and age. She started a magazine, and I'm not talking about an internet magazine. I'm talking
that's
about
what I mean. To survive this day and age, you got to really be doing something well. And again, but she's still, like any smart person, I want to get better and better and better at what I do.
Right.
So I'd be checking. I don't care what I have. I'm going to go to SCORE and just, they might say, Mike, that's terrible. Oh, okay. It doesn't mean I have to agree, but
I'm glad that you brought that up, because she had been to SCORE, she's successful, and yet now she's going back. So people who are already out there with successful businesses, have never done business with SCORE before, can still come in if they want to maybe go to the next level.
That's correct. Now, are we talking about Terry?
Yeah, well, we were just referencing her, and then, but I'm sure in the restaurant business that comes up a lot in the sense that, should I expand to 2 restaurants? Should I go to 4?
Very good.
How do I expand my workforce?
Right. Yeah, so absolutely, folks. SCORE is for any business person in general. It's not just for the person who is starting in business, but could be for the person who's already been in business, maybe even for a number of years.
By the way, Terry was in last week for her appointment.
Okay. All right, we have to go to the break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Mike McBath and Rich Jaeckle right here on What's the Score? Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, the brand new show sponsored by AM 660 The Answer. And folks, if you'd like to become a member of SCORE, it's real easy. All you have to do is go to orlando.score.org or give them a call at 407-420-4844. And here's the best part, folks. There's no cost to you. Okay? And if you'd like to walk in, even go over to the Orlando Fashion Square at the Entrepreneurial Center. You can't miss it. Just look for the green vines on the building. And they're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And tell them Rich the Jaeckle sent you.
The day of the Jaeckle.
There you go. All right. And
hey, Chris,
yes.
I'd just like to wish everybody out there happy 4th of July weekend, and especially our veterans and current armed forces personnel.
Absolutely. And don't forget, we still have them serving in the theater of action in Afghanistan, and they are still being killed and wounded there. So it is appropriate to remember them.
Yeah, and we have a little pattern going here, because our first program, our debut program, which was last week, was about beer from the Orlando Brewing, right?
Yep.
And this week we have an NFL Players Association retired Buffalo Bill player. So this weekend is football. And next weekend is going to be about food.
Hey, that's great.
So we got a little pattern running right here.
The American tradition, that's right. Football,
I'll
apple
take
pie.
the first and the third.
All right, it's time for our Keys to Success feature here on the show, folks. Once a week, we're going to talk about the keys to success. Sometimes it's going to be do's, sometimes it's going to be don'ts, and sometimes it's just going to be about approach. And since we have Mike McBath in the studio with us today, we're going to partake a little bit of his experience, which he's, by the way, is going to tell us all about his experience bringing the Orlando Predators here to Orlando in the second half of the show, so you're definitely going to want to stick around for that. But for right now, we're going to talk about a lack of adequate capitalization and a lack of focus and commitment, because sometimes they kind of go hand in hand, because as the capitalization begins to dry up, the focus and commitment sometimes begins to wane with it. Mike?
I mean, I think, again, with most people, the reason I would say the majority of them fail is, to me, ideas sounds terrible, or a dime a dozen. It's the ability to take the idea, build the idea, and complete the idea. And to do that, then you got to really sit back and look at all the different points of the puzzle you have to put together to be able to execute it in a fashion that is going to turn successful dollars and cash flow to you. Most people, again, the question they always have is, do I really have a commitment? Am I going to follow this through to the end, or am I going to throw the towel in at the first bump in the road? And the reality is, I don't care what business there is. I've never seen a business that's just going straight to the completion where you made $1 million and you didn't have problems.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many, I call traps out there that you got to be cognizant of. And again, that's why even myself, as experienced as I am, if I were starting, let's say, a restaurant business, I'm going to be sitting over at SCORE. Why? I have other people I know, but I'm going to counsel with them too. Then I'm going to look at, what do they advise? What does the other party advise? Who failed? Who didn't? So you got to take all these things in consideration. And when they start a business, they better have checked all the other businesses around them that they're competing against. How much competition do I have out there?
He's talking also about homework, which is what we talked about last week on the show, being so very important to the start of the project. But in terms of adequate capitalization, what can SCORE offer to people in terms of advice as far as it comes to capitalization? Because many businesses you can kind of start on a whim, but most you can't.
Right. One of the things I always like to tell them is all your friends love your cupcakes at a bake sale, right? And so they keep telling you to start your own cupcake business. Well, when you start charging $5 for a cupcake, all of a sudden your friends disappear. So how many cupcakes do you have to sell, and to whom? And a lot of companies, startup companies, don't have that rationale. Well, I'm not going to make money for about 3 months. It's ramp-up time. And it takes 3 to 6 months to really get a business off the ground. You have to have enough capitalization to live on for those 3 to 6 months and to operate your business.
And so what SCORE would do is basically help you develop that real-world estimate of what that actually would take, and to see if you are in a position to fund it. And now you can also offer avenues to funding, but for most small businesses, it's very difficult, if not near impossible, to get a bank loan, is it not?
That it is. For startup businesses, darn near impossible.
So what is the most common way people normally finance their startup?
Oh, friends, family, investors, those types of things. They take out home equity, lines of credit. That's a very popular one if you own your own house. They will borrow. If you've got a signed contract in place, they can borrow off that signed contract.
So what you're saying is that most people who start out assume all the risk pretty much themselves, unless they are, find investors amongst family and friend, and then they may be putting those relationships in jeopardy.
That's right. Yeah, it's everyone I've seen puts it in jeopardy. But that's the true meaning of the entrepreneur, a person who is taking all the risk for the reward of making a profit. Yeah,
and certainly the reward can be, quite how should I say, lucrative.
Yes.
But when do you know when it's time to cut and run, Mike? Let's just say the 6 months have gone by that Rich just talked about, and the bank account's looking low, and I'm feeling depressed.
I think that's when you get your balance sheet from your
there
accountant.
You go. That's right.
It goes minus.
Yeah. But when does lack of focus and commitment enter into?
At that point, if I were someone, first of all, I would have to do a self-examination. Am I here? Here's another problem with people, and I used to see it in the brokerage business. I was a broker for 38 years in one of the toughest businesses in the nation. The average broker doesn't last 4 years. And the reason they don't, they just don't have the commitment to their client, to themselves to succeed.
Right.
I would be in there at 7:30 in the morning. I'd never go out to lunch. I would stay till 7 at night. And that's what it took. But, I made a very good living. And everybody said, oh, I can't believe you. Guess what? The rest of you people, you're out at lunch. I said, what good things happen at lunch, right? You gain weight and you become an alcoholic. That I don't need. I don't mind the alcoholic part.
You can say that for the evening, right?
I know. But I mean, you look at all the things that you got to do right and the perseverance that you got to put into it. And then the person has to ask themselves, here I am, I'm suffering losses. First of all, is it me? And then secondly, is it the product? Third, is it my workers?
Right.
You got to have like a checklist.
Location.
And this is where SCORE can come in handy, folks. If you're out there and you feel like you're in that predicament, get a hold of SCORE. By the way, did you know that Ray Kroc, of course, who built McDonald's into what it is today, he was on the verge of bankruptcy when he bought the business from the McDonald's brothers, who started it in California. He thought it was a great idea because it was so simple and straightforward and clean. But when he took it to other parts of the country, he discovered that he couldn't make any money. And he was just about destitute. So what he did was he went to the people who supplied him, Coca-Cola,
suppliers,
Dixie Cup, and the meat and the potato suppliers. And he said, look, I think I've got something really good here. I'm on hard times right now, though. If you can get me through this, I will make us all tremendously more rich than we already are. And of course he did. But it was because he had the persistence. He had the commitment. When he was up against the wall, he improvised. He found another way to scale that wall, if you will. And look at the result today.
A good point you brought up is if you have, like in his case, let's say you have a reasonable degree of success in a sector or a part of the country you're in. You can get your suppliers to
work with
ante up and work with you. When I say ante up, meaning, they'll provide you product, you delay your payments. There's different ways you can approach it.
Credit.
But in essence, that's what he did. But that's part of this game of entrepreneurship.
And he also promised them that as long as he was alive and as far as he could see it, they would always be his suppliers. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, like Lowe's and Home Depot, very often, if you walk in there with a signed document saying, I've got this contract to build, I need supplies, can you delay my receivables to you for 60 days after I get paid? They'll do it. They'll work with you just so you get the business and they get the business.
Folks, this is just some of the little tidbits that you'll pick up at SCORE that can really help you make a difference in your business. And by the way, they have basically an evaluation sheet that you can fill out to kind of see if you're thinking about starting a business, if it's really something for you. A lot of people have the idea, I've got this great idea, or I'd like to be self-employed, not really understanding that self-employed means oftentimes overemployed. And what I mean by that is, as Mike said, you're there all the time. You have to make sure all the work is done and you get paid the last if you have employees. And so it can be a very difficult thing, and you have to have that commitment. You have to have that focus, or you are sure to fail.
That's correct. Going back to your original question, what would you get when you came into SCORE and your business was about to launch? We would do projections with you for the first 6 months and project out there how many cupcakes it takes for you to make a living.
Right. And as I said, folks, you can find out more about SCORE, and you can become a member where they'll send you updates and newsletters at orlando.score.org. Give them a call, 407-420-4844, or you can just walk in over there at the Fashion Square perhaps one day when you're doing your shopping, Monday through Friday.
One other thing, too, which just quickly is regulation. I mean, they have, like, depending on the type of business, they have a whole list of who your regulators will say that you got to be able to deal with, understand what your costs are, what can become your liabilities. These are so important to these young companies, and particularly when you've got a burdensome government like we have out there now.
I was going to say, particularly in this day and age, where there are regulations that you've probably...
It's an absolute mess for these young people.
Okay. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this segment of the show. We're going to take the break now, but when we come back from the break, Mike's going to tell us about his experience with the Orlando Predators. It's fascinating. Please stay with us. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, the brand new show being brought to you by AM 660, The Answer. And folks, this is a great show, and I hope you tell all your friends about it. Of course, SCORE is available to you right here in Orlando, and you can find out more by going to orlando.score.org or give them a call at 407-420-4844. I'm Christopher Hart, and I'm joined in the studio this morning by Rich Jaeckle of SCORE and Mike McBath, who is presently the president of the Retired NFL Players Association. But more importantly, perhaps to us here in Orlando, he is the original owner of the Orlando Predators. And Mike, it's a fascinating story. But first, I want to give people a little bit of background about you. You went to Penn State University, played under the, what do they call him?
I was on Joe Pa. I was on his first 2 years as head coach. Actually, this year when I was up there this weekend, they brought back a lot of their former players. And I talked to Mrs. Paterno this weekend.
How's she doing?
She's doing fine. Yeah. And believe me, all of us don't believe he's guilty at all. And this true story will come out in about a year. We need some more litigation, and here we go.
All right. From Penn State, you were drafted into the NFL and played for the Buffalo Bills.
Right, I don't know if I was fortunate enough to play for him, but
hey, wait a minute.
I was thinking of the Giants or L.A., but you can imagine when they say Buffalo. Buffalo what? No, but actually it was a great experience, and even reflecting to this, I myself was a pretty aggressive young man because while I was playing professional football,
and you played defensive line.
Right, I was a defensive end. And occasionally defensive tackle, depending on who was hurt that week.
Right, sure.
But I played long enough to get a pension, and then I've got heavily active in the Player Association. But while I was playing, I went to graduate school, and I got a graduate degree in economics from the University of Florida. But I used to always read because it was funny. When I was finished playing, they put you through counseling and everything. They said, well, Mr. McBath, most of the guys want to really work with kids. I said, I don't want to. They go, what do you mean? I said, I want to make a lot of money. And the guy looked at me and goes, what? And I said, yeah, I want to make a lot of money. Then I'll be able to help kids. You guys all do it the reverse. You don't have any money. How are you going to help them?
And you did. You did.
And it worked out pretty good.
You went to work for UBS?
I worked I started with Payne Weber. Payne Weber was bought out by UBS, and as you know, that's a tough career. It's about the average life. I was 38 years in it.
And quite successful, as a matter of fact.
I was very fortunate.
First $1 million broker, I believe.
Well, I did a lot.
And that was back in the day.
Yeah.
And since then, and of course, you're involved in the union. But somewhere along the line, you decided to have an arena football team. How did that happen?
Well, I think everybody, particularly if they've been an athlete, in the back of their mind, they'd all like to be an owner, whether, hockey, basketball, whatever.
Now, you had
sport,
never been part of an ownership group.
Never been part of an ownership group. I was part of the Player Association. I worked with them. I understood a little bit about what's going on in football. I played on the side. But what happened is, and this isn't a very good picture, but I was sitting in the bathroom one day reading Sports Illustrated.
Okay.
And I opened it up and I started reading about Jim Foster. Jim Foster was the owner of the Barnstormers, and he was also the commissioner. So what I did, and this is pretty aggressive, I just picked the phone up. Jim, Mike McBath, Orlando, how are you? Listen, I'd like you to come on down to Florida. I got a couple other investors. We have an interest in purchasing the team, but I want to sit down with you and talk about all the different details associated, being part of the league. And Davey Johnson, the baseball manager, was my other partner, and a fellow named Tracy Allen. And we all agreed, we were the general partners. It was a limited partnership. Then we had 3 other limited partners. But it was a fortuitous partnership because Davey knew a lot of people. Remember, tickets, sell, sell, ticket, sell.
Right.
Tracy had been a former broker, knew a lot of people. I was a pretty big-time broker, knew a lot of people. And plus, we did the smart thing in the sense that when you ante up your initial capital, and in my own mind, we all 3 did it, if we missed and it went to 0, wouldn't bother us at all. Meaning, in the sense that we understood that the chances of going the other way is probably at least 50-50, maybe 70-30. So we understood it. There would be no tears or anything like that.
Well, that's probably where your stockbroker experience came to you, because in way, when you put money into the stock market, you better not be putting the rent money in there.
Yeah,
right?
Just don't think that it's a risk-free game. I can assure you that.
Exactly. The payoff can be big. Of course, it can be also, devastating.
It can be. It goes both ways.
Exactly. And, of course, that exists as well in the business world. Had you ever been in a partnership before?
Well, I had been in small limited partnerships. I call nickel-dime type deals. This was a sort of a much more bigger venture because, remember, and you talk about how does being an entrepreneur get people hired, how do you expand an economy? Now, think about this. There's one guy. Now I go get 2. Then we get 3 limited partners. Now there's 6. Now we go out and we hire a general manager. Then we hire 24 athletes. Then we hire we hire about 5 coaches. I mean, you look at the multiplying effect. Then as we come into the league, then the league begins to expand, and now there's another 4 more teams. And now they're on TV. And, the answer to taking America out of the economic doldrums which we're in today is entrepreneurship.
It absolutely
This is where all the money should be going. It shouldn't be going to pay people to sit home. It should be going to pay people to get out of the house and do something.
At this point, well, let me segue here just for a second that Mike has brought that up, because I was looking for a place to bring this in. This is an article that I read last week in the Wall Street Journal. It's entitled "Behind the Productivity Plunge, Fewer Startups." And it's by Edward Prescott, who's a Nobel laureate professor of economics at the Center for the Advanced Study in Economics at Arizona State University, and Lee Ohanian. And Lee Ohanian is a professor of economics at UCLA. And what they point out in this article, according to United States Census numbers, from the 80s to 2011, which is the latest year for numbers, the number of actual business startups has been going down. Has that been the experience in SCORE?
Absolutely. The funding is not there as it used to be. There's more people that are not willing to take the risk.
And
they can go on unemployment and just collect more than taking the risk.
Become a taker instead of a maker, as the little rhyme goes. And these economists estimate that the loss in productivity amounts to $1 trillion a year off of our GDP.
Right. Now, you can imagine what that would do to our national debt.
Exactly.
And then the other thing is that is plagued our business society. Not only this ridiculous regulation generated by you-know-who, but the other factor is the legal harassment. How do you run these companies like when in arena football? Some guy's drunk at the arena, right? He falls down the steps. We get sued. Geez, I didn't know I was drinking the beer. I didn't know that I ordered the beer.
Right.
I didn't know that I paid for the beer.
Right.
Yet I'm the guy that ends up settling.
Yeah.
This stuff, this law garbage has to stop.
Yeah.
Because what they try to do is just reflect through one group to the next until they extort money from somebody.
Yeah.
But that causes young businesses to disappear. One good lawsuit wipes the business out. It also wipes the spirit out of another entrepreneur.
Oh, the ripple effect, absolutely.
Think of the insurance costs alone in starting a small business.
And Rich, when I think about it, there's 98,000 lawyers in the state of Florida. Could you imagine if that was 98,000 more entrepreneurs? Do you think the state would be better off? You're not kidding. Not even debatable.
Not even.
Well, going back to what you said, Mike, about the Predators coming in and spurring the economy, think of all the concessions, all the food, all the hot dogs, the beer, all the people from local Orlando area that were
We did 5 times the beer concession than the Magic.
I was going to say,
imagine that.
Yeah, back when you guys came
that's
to
when
town.
I was there.
Most of that was due to
Since
Rich.
you stopped coming, Rich, you really killed the team.
But when you guys ran the team, it was the happening team here in Orlando.
Yeah,
and the tradition in terms of a winning team has lasted.
Well, what we did, too, which was smart, we didn't get caught in the trap of trying to say, well, we're the Predators, we're as good as the NFL. No. This is arena football. It's party with the bad boys. We never reflect on whether we're better than the NFL, worse than the NFL. You make your own conclusion.
Right.
And we created our own stars. That was part of the package. We had Herky Walls, Barry Wagner, Ben Bennett. We had all guys that were like little personalities in the area. And the reality of it is we had massive I call enthusiasm. And to tell you, which I still laugh about this today, we put a group out to survey people when they came out of the stadium because it was so much fun going to the games because we'd always say it's a party and then a football game broke out, right?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the game, we'd have these people interviewing them. This is the funniest story. So the people would come out and they go, well, how'd you like it? Yeah, it's great. You have a good time? Yeah, great. And I said, by the way, who won? Half of them did not even have a clue who won.
But they knew they had a good time.
They had a good time. So I said, Perry, get rid of everybody so we can lower the salaries. No.
Of course, Perry Moss was the coach at that time.
Perry
Great
Moss
coach.
was the coach, right.
But that just showed your focus. Right. You guys were you weren't going to be distracted. You were focused. You knew where you had a niche.
And make it a good time for the fans. We're entertainers. We're salesmen. Let's go out and sell the product. And, Predators is a great name. The colors are a great name. Never stop selling.
All right, and we're going to talk more about selling your product when we come back from the break. But first, folks, I want to ask you, do you think maybe you're ready to go to that next level? Well, Score is definitely for you, but radio may also be for you. Radio is still one of the most effective ways available to build name recognition via advertising and prestige via your own radio show like this one right here. If you would like to explore the world of radio on one of the most powerful AM stations in Central Florida, then call Paul Proley at 407-618-1769. He's with Salem Communications right here. That's Paul Proley. You can also reach him at 407-618-1760. Once again, when we come back from this break, we'll continue the conversation with Mike McBath. Some more fascinating stories about the Predators, but we're going to talk about how he focused on the marketing of the team and how it paid off. And then Rich is going to tell us how folks over at Score can help you do the same thing with your business. Because without marketing, you're going nowhere in this world because there is so much. It doesn't matter what business that you're in. There's just keen competition out there everywhere. So please stay with us because we're going to be right back with more of What's the Score? Okay, welcome back to What's the Score, the show meant to help you make a bigger and better success out of your business or your business idea. I'm Christopher Hart, joined today by Rich Jaeckle of Score Orlando, and you can find out more about Score at orlando.score.org or give them a call over at the Entrepreneurial Center, which is in the Orlando Fashion Square, open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Their number there is 407-420-4844, and tell them Dr. Jaeckle and Mr. Hart sent you.
There you go.
All right. And today, of course, we're joined in the studio by Mike McBath. And Mike, of course, is played with the NFL Buffalo Bills, but you also went on to play world football.
Well, as you know, Chris, this is what I always remind my NFL players that were all pro and everything. They said, well, Mike, I was all pro. I said, big deal, buddy. I was all world. I played in the World League when the all world team came out. So, when you top all world, you give me a call, okay?
And Mike, a very successful stockbroker for 38 years at UBS First Boston, and made a lot of people lots of money, but also a very successful owner-operator of the Orlando Predators, the original ownership team. And you, as you were telling us in the last segment, you focused on the fact that what you were putting out was entertainment. and you marketed it that way. But the main thing is that you marketed it heavily.
We believe that the whole thing is, I'm sure, Rich does and you, it's sell, 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 sell. And I don't think I missed a Kiwanis club, every form of club there was out there, every women's club. Everywhere I went, we talked arena football, the Predators. We were, in essence, educating them. And, within 2 to 3 years, we're selling out the arena. Here's the Magic, who is an NBA team. Their arena is 3/4 full. We're sold out. Our tickets sell for double in the streets. But we got such a fever going. But the whole point was we advertised, we sold, we did a lot of radio, we did, TV, we did everything. Now I flash us to the future this year. I'm still a fan of the Predators. I love watching the games. But this owner who has long departed, I don't think he put a dime in advertising. And guess what happened?
The attendance at the games is...
And he is,
right.
What? No longer the owner.
He's no longer the owner.
And guess what happened to his money? Bye-bye.
Right.
So the answer is he didn't take it serious. He thought everything sells itself. No! You're the owner. You sell. You get everybody in the force out there selling.
And I've found that what he talked about, the technique about going and meeting with groups, is a great way to do it. But that's just one way, right, Rich?
That's absolutely right. Networking, as you and Mike both said. But another key emphasizer of selling your business is getting an elevator speech or a series of descriptions of your business that will get people interested. I want to hear more about this.
Right,
and
right.
Mike's got it down to a T here, but, most people don't. I tell them, why do I want to buy business?
And you're right, Rich. You got to I always go, you got to have a sexy story.
Exactly.
The answer is every business is competing against another business, but how do you make your business sound better?
Yeah. Why do I want to buy from you? Tell me why.
All right. And everybody can do that in one way or another.
Absolutely can. In fact, if you don't, you're missing the point. You've got to determine your differentiating factors. In other words, what makes me different from a lawn mowing place down the road?
And this is where, once again, folks, people at SCORE can help you out, because many business people, if not most, and I'll ask Rich's opinion of this, have a business where they're good at whatever the business is, whether it be a product like making cupcakes or a service like lawnscaping, but they don't really know the marketing angles of it, don't really know a lot about bookkeeping and stuff like that. That's where SCORE can really be a big part of their success.
Absolutely. Look at yourself. Take yourself, for example. You started out a landscaping company. And your first thought was to...
carpentry contracting company.
Whatever, landscaping, carpentry.
Same idea. Right.
But you went ahead and got the tools and learned how to do the carpentry work, but you didn't know who your target market was.
Yeah.
You didn't know who you were going after, what income level, what areas, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was when I began to network that sort of thing began to come together.
Right.
And Mike, when you guys were partners, how did you make decisions?
Well, it was pretty much, first of all, we got along well, all of us. Secondly, we didn't fight. This is an important thing when you're partners. We didn't fight over money. And it's a case that, unfortunately, things went along pretty well from the very beginning because, as I said, sell, bring revenues in. And, we did very well with advertising, and this is an example. We were cost conscious, and I gave you a little example. Like most of our shows we put on, other than the fireworks show, which we were probably one of the first teams in the nation, both in arena, but NBA, everything. We put on a fireworks show that was mind-boggling.
And let me just say this, from attending those games, it really added to the ambiance of the game, because for most of the game, if not the entire game, you had this fog that was left over but it actually added to the ambiance of the game. It made it more of an enjoyable experience.
Our theme song, Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, with the fireworks going off, people screaming and yelling. You got a team that's always close to undefeated.
It was really a home field advantage.
Pitch.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas we actually came up with at happy hour.
when you're brainstorming.
In those days, every hour was.
I was telling him a couple little stories, but one time I was coming from Church Street over to the game, and this guy was playing the bongos on the street, and I said, "Hey, buddy, you interested in some free drinks and stuff?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Follow me." So I took him and I put him right out in the center of the field. Remember the field that it looks, So I put him out in the field, and he played the bongos for like the first half hour.
As people were coming
in, and then the next day I had people call me and say, "Mike, where did you find that guy? He was terrific." I said, "You just have to have an eye for talent."
But when you think about it, that would fit right into the jungle. But
right. Remember we had Pee Wee Herman until the incident.
Until the incident. Yeah. But yeah, you guys really put out a product, but you couldn't have done it without the marketing.
Right.
And,
unless they were out there. And again, the two other fellas, Tracy Allen, well-connected, knew a lot of companies, a lot of businesses, sold a lot of tickets. Because remember, at that time, I was probably in my mid-40s. Tracy was probably 50. Davey's probably 50. And, Davey had a good reputation, so he could move tickets. I could move tickets. Tracy could move tickets. We had a sales force whose job was move tickets. Every day we're on top of them. And they did a great job.
But you advertised, too. You had billboards.
Advertised.
You had radio advertising.
Radio was a big, big part. I'm a big fan of radio because even myself, every day when I would go to work in the brokerage business or anything, the minute I walk out the door, bang, radio on. Minute, at lunch, bang.
Radio is still the most common way that people get their news.
Right.
And talk radio is the most listened to radio format.
Right.
So radio is still a huge part of everyone's life, even in this day and age when you have the iPhones and the iTunes.
Social media.
Yeah, exactly. Radio is plays a prominent role. And as you said, you can see the difference in the success with the Orlando Predators.
You're right. You can look at the Predators today and look at it back then. I mean, we used to have like hot tubs with people in watching a game, drinking. We had everything going on. Beautiful women. We were the only sport in America that half of the audience was beautiful women. You know what I mean? It was like 50-50. No one could believe that that's what we were. But we were.
Yeah.
And the average age was anywhere from 18 to probably 40. And then, you look at it today, and let me tell you, this can be reconstructed, and I think there is a new owner on the horizon, but we'll see. But the answer is, I believe they could get back, but it's going to take a change of mindset. But the one thing advantage the guy has who comes in is everybody knows the name of the Predators. Now, the question to the new owner is, get them back to where they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to remind people out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that Mike's got a good handle on what his business was. His business wasn't football per se, but it was entertainment. And that's how he made his money. Now, when you're baking cupcakes, your business isn't cupcakes per se, it's selling cupcakes. So how do you get the sales and how much do you charge is important.
Absolutely. And once again, folks, all of these questions, people at SCORE, that's what they're there to help you work through. You may be strong in one part of your business, but maybe a little weak in another part of your business. They can help you out there. You may be brand new to the business world. They definitely need to be one of the first stops that you make, no matter who you are, no matter perhaps even what experience you have. As Mike has said, he still gets things out of working with SCORE. And once again, if you'd like to know more about SCORE, you can go to orlando.score.org or give them a call at 407-420-4844. And if you'd like to find out more about radio advertising for your business or perhaps having even your own radio show, call Paul Proley at 407-678-1769 with Salem Communications. That's 618-1769, 618-1769. And if you like this show, please, you got an email where they can email you there at SCORE, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So just go to the website and let us know what you think about the show.
Right. Exactly.
And, of course, Rich, you're going to be back with us next week. Who's going to be our guest next week now?
A restaurateur, but also a colleague of mine named Paul McNally. And we're going to be talking about restaurants and why they have the highest failure rate of any business in the United States.
And I know a lot of people out there have experienced their favorite restaurant going out of business, sometimes even after a number of years. So, folks, you'll definitely want to tune in for that. So I want to thank you for being with us today. Mike McBath, it's always a great time.
Always fun.
Yeah, thank you,
Enjoyed
Mike.
it. That was great.
And, of course, Rich, I want to thank you for being here. And once again, we want to thank the great folks at AM 660, The Answer, and Salem Communications for making this show possible as a public service to you folks out there in the Orlando area.
And also our veterans on this 4th of July weekend.
Absolutely. It's 4th of July weekend. Enjoy it, folks. And we will be talking to you next week here in Orlando from What's the Score? Remember, folks, once again, orlando.score.org, 407-420-4844. That's where you can find out what SCORE can do to help you make your business a winner in this tough world of competition. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll be back next week.